I'm Dale Smith for Looney Politics, and in this week's Cabinet Shuffle, we saw Anita Anand go to Treasury Board and Bill Blair take over as the Defense Minister. And this is particularly significant not because of the talk about this being a demotion for Anand, which it's not. Treasury Board is an extremely important portfolio, but rather because the signal that this sends around the issue of civilian control of the military. Anand, being someone who has never had military experience, was particularly suited to ensure that civilian control was being exercised, also in particular because she has a background in corporate governance. That was what she taught in law schools. Whereas Bill Blair, being a former police chief, is not placed for civilian oversight because he is someone who has had a career within these kinds of organizations. Yes, it was police, which is paramilitary, but the similarities around the kind of culture in the military are a little too similar for comfort. Now, when Bill Blair was public safety minister, he really wasn't able to properly exercise civilian control over the RCMP, which is within his jurisdiction as public safety minister. And as a result, we saw very little of the necessary culture change within the RCMP being driven. And the RCMP is extremely averse to civilian control, as we are particularly witnessing around the directives around neck holds. And the military is a similar kind of situation. There was definitely pushback against Anand, who was exercising civilian control. And the fear among certain people who are observing this kind of an issue is that Blair won't be able to properly push back against any military resistance to more exercise of civilian control over their operations. Civilian control is a fundamental aspect of a democracy. And this government has been particularly weak on it because they keep putting people into portfolios that require civilian control who cannot properly exercise it. Harjit Sajjan was a particular example because he was someone who was an active member of the military when he got elected. And when he became defense minister, he had no remove from the culture that he was supposed to be overseeing and was captured by it and not able to properly exercise that oversight. Similar with Blair and public safety, and now he's being placed in charge of the Canadian Forces. Now, Blair seems to think that because he, held leadership over a large uniform organization and that he can institute culture change because when he was police chief in Toronto, he ensured that he increased the diversity within the force, which is all well and good, but he didn't meaningfully change the culture of policing in the Toronto Police Force. And this is the kind of thing that we really need to deal with the Canadian Forces. There is a toxic and poisonous culture within the military that is part of the problem with why it can't retain personnel and why problematic individuals keep being protected rather than being prosecuted. And if Blair isn't able to exercise the proper civilian oversight that is necessary to drive that culture change, then the problems in the Canadian Forces are going to fester, and this government doesn't seem to take that seriously when they really should be. For Looney Politics, I'm Dale Smith.